She walked into the bank wearing tattered clothes, laughed at, dismissed, and thrown out like a nobody. But what no one knew was this homeless woman owned the very institution mocking her. When power hides in plain sight, who's really rich? The one holding money or the one holding mercy? The humming of fluorescent lights and the distant clatter of keyboards filled the lobby of Beacon Financial Bank in downtown Chicago. It was a regular Monday morning, phones buzzing, customers scrolling, and tellers stamping paperwork in robotic rhythm. A playlist of soft jazz floated from the ceiling speakers, nearly drowned out by impatient sighs. Until the doors slid open and a woman stepped in. Her name was Leah Morgan. To most in that room, she was invisible. Her coat was frayed at the edges, her shoes looked older than the building itself, and the scarf around her head barely hid the strands of gray in her unkempt hair. She carried a canvas tote that sagged heavily by her side. A quiet hush rippled through the air, like the moment before thunder strikes. Kelsey, the front desk rep, leaned toward her colleague, whispering, "Did she walk in from a shelter? Maybe she's confused," her coworker shrugged, "or looking for a place to warm up." Leah stepped up to the counter, her voice barely above a whisper. "Good morning, I'd like to make a transaction." The teller, Julia, gave her a long look. "Ma'am, this is a private banking branch. Do you even have an account here?" Some customers turned to watch. Others smirked. One man chuckled under his breath. No one offered help. No one asked her name. Leah's eyes didn't flinch. "Yes, I have an account, and I need assistance." Julia crossed her arms. "Well, we need your ID and proof of account. Not just anyone walks in here and I know how a bank works." Leah interrupted. Her voice was steady this time, commanding, but no one cared to listen. Security began to approach. No one in that room knew that the woman in worn shoes and a faded scarf was the founder and majority shareholder of Beacon Financial, the very bank they were guarding. This wasn't just a transaction, it was a test, and they were all about to fail it. What happens when the richest woman in the room is treated like the poorest? What do you do when humility meets humiliation and the world watches? And who will be left standing when the truth comes out? Julia let out a small laugh and motioned for the security guard to step closer. "Look, ma'am, this isn't the place for walk-ins asking questions. We're not handing out donations here." Leah stood her ground. "I didn't ask for a donation. I asked to make a transaction." Kelsey raised an eyebrow. "You got a checking account with us, 'cause I don't see your kind often in here." "My kind?" Leah asked calmly. "The kind who strolls in looking like they just spent the night on the blue line." Kelsey replied with a smirk. The guard, a tall man with a shaved head and badge reading Marcus, hesitated before stepping forward. "Ma'am, let's not cause a scene. Please come with me." "I'm not causing anything," Leah said, her voice firm. "I'm standing here like any other customer asking to be served." The atmosphere thickened. Customers shifted. Phones tilted quietly into video mode. Some wore expressions of pity. Others curiosity, but most simply watched, waiting to be entertained. Julia leaned over the counter, her voice dipping with sarcasm. "All right, if you really have an account, then what's your account number?" Leah opened her canvas bag and began rummaging through it. "Oh, please," Kelsey scoffed. "You're not going to pull out Monopoly money, are you?" Another laugh from a customer. The sound of mockery echoed, casual and cruel. Leah found a small, worn leather pouch inside the bag. She opened it and pulled out a sleek, steel-plated card, clean, untouched, and unmistakably real. Julia blinked, confused. She glanced at the card. "Wait. This is a platinum-tier executive card. How did you?" Before she could finish, Marcus stepped in again. "That's enough, ma'am. I'm asking you to leave now." "Do not touch me," Leah said, her voice suddenly louder. The strength in her words was unexpected, not angry, but commanding. But Marcus didn't back off. He grabbed her arm lightly. "Please, we're asking you nicely. This is a private bank." "I know exactly where I am," Leah snapped, "more than you do." Still, He led her gently but firmly toward the door. Her tote bounced against her side with each step. Her shoes scraped the marble. Her dignity stayed rooted where she had stood, surrounded by people who wouldn't see past a coat and scarf. As she was pushed through the glass doors into the cold wind, a woman near the ATM shook her head and said loudly, "See, this is what happens when people don't know their place." Inside, Julia leaned back, brushing crumbs from her blouse. "That was awkward," Kelsey chuckled. "Did you see her face when Marcus touched her? Like she really thought she belonged here." Julia nodded. "Crazy part is, she had the executive card. Probably fake, probably," Kelsey said. Marcus returned to his post at the door, shaking his head. "People like that. You give them an inch, and they'll take the lobby." Back outside, Leah stood quietly. She looked through the glass one last time, her expression unreadable. They had laughed. They had touched her without asking. They had thrown her out, but they had no idea who she was. Inside, Beacon Financial was still buzzing. Calls ringing, printers humming, the ordinary continuing as if nothing had happened. But everything had just changed. The wind howled down the Chicago street as Leah stepped away from the bank's glass doors. Her scarf fluttered behind her like a flag of quiet defiance. She didn't cry, she didn't yell. She simply reached into her canvas tote, pulled out her phone, a sleek, silver iPhone 15 Pro Max, and dialed a number she hadn't used in months. "Ethan," she said, her voice firm. "Meet me at the Michigan Avenue branch." Now, on the other end, Ethan Caldwell, regional manager for Beacon Financial, and the man who answered only to the board and Leah herself, nearly choked on his coffee. "Ma'am. Is everything all right? Are you at the branch?" "I was," she replied, "and so were your people. Come, I'll wait outside." She hung up without another word. Back inside the bank, nothing had changed. Julia scrolled through her Instagram feed. Kelsey gossiped with Marcus about a celebrity scandal. No one thought twice about the woman they had just shoved into the cold. 20 minutes later, a matte black Range Rover screeched to a halt at the curb. Out stepped Ethan in a navy suit, his face pale and panicked. The moment he saw Leah standing calmly under the shade of a nearby tree, he rushed toward her. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. Let's go inside," she said coldly. "And don't call me ma'am. Not yet." Inside the lobby, heads turned as the well-dressed man stormed through the doors. Flanked by the same woman security had dragged out earlier. Julia blinked. Kelsey sat up straighter. Marcus instinctively stepped back. Ethan's voice cut through the hum of the bank like a siren. "Where's your manager?" barked. Kelsey stammered, "Mr. Russo is out? I want the acting supervisor. Now?" Julia stood slowly. "I'm the senior rep on duty." Ethan nodded grimly. "Then let me make this simple." He turned toward the customers. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to the woman your staff just humiliated." Whispers rippled across the room. "This is Leah Morgan, founder, chairwoman, and controlling shareholder of Beacon Financial Corporation. She is, effectively, your boss." The silence was thunderous. Julia's face turned white. Kelsey's mouth dropped open. Marcus looked like someone had unplugged his brain. Leah stepped forward. "I came in today for one reason, to see how the people who represent my institution behave when no one is watching." She looked directly at Julia. "You failed." At Kelsey, "You laughed." Then at Marcus, "You laid hands on a woman without even asking her name." Marcus stammered, "Ma'am, I didn't know that's exactly the problem." Leah replied, "None of you asked, none of you cared. You judged by clothes, not character." Julia's voice cracked. "I thought you were. I didn't realize you thought I was beneath you." Leah said calmly, "And now that I'm above you, you're sorry." Ethan stood silently beside her. Leah took a breath and faced the customers. "I built this bank on the belief that people matter. Not titles, not status, but today I saw something else. Pride, disrespect, and entitlement." She turned back to her staff. You are dismissed. All three of you, effective immediately." The reaction was instant. Julia's knees buckled. Kelsey gasped and burst into tears. Marcus looked down, too ashamed to meet her eyes. A middle-aged woman from the waiting area stood and began to clap. Slowly, then others joined. It wasn't loud, but it was real. A small wave of human decency rising in the face of quiet cruelty. Leah didn't smile. "This isn't revenge," she said. "It's a reminder." She turned to Ethan. "You'll be holding staff-wide retraining this month, and I want cameras in every branch lobby by next week." He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." As she turned to leave, Julia sobbed. "Please, Ms. Morgan. One mistake. Please." But Leah paused only long enough to say one thing. One mistake can teach you everything if you survive it. And then, with the entire lobby watching, Leah Morgan walked out of the bank. No longer just the woman they laughed at, but the leader they would never forget. 3 weeks passed, in a penthouse high above the Chicago skyline. Leah Morgan sat in silence. The city below bustled as always. Horns honking, trains rumbling. Life moving on, but inside her quiet home, time felt slower. The events at the bank hadn't left her mind, not even for a day. She had fired people before. It came with the job, but this felt different. She didn't regret the decision. They had humiliated a stranger for no reason other than how she looked, but the question that haunted her was simple. Had she done it to teach them or to punish them? She stood by the window with a steaming mug of herbal tea, watching the horizon darken with early evening clouds. On the table behind her lay a growing stack of handwritten envelopes, all from the same 3 people she had dismissed. The first letter had arrived 5 days after the incident, then another and another, one each day. She hadn't opened any of them until now. She sat down slowly, pulled the top envelope toward her, and unfolded the first sheet. "Ms. Morgan, my name is Julia, and I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know I'm not the same person who laughed at you that day. I've lost my job, my confidence, and most of all, my peace. What I did was inexcusable. You didn't deserve it. I now work part-time delivering groceries to help my mom cover rent. Every door I knock on reminds me how wrong I was to judge someone by appearance. Thank you for waking me up, even if it hurt." Leah swallowed hard. She hadn't expected it to sting so much. She opened the second letter. Kelsey's. "Ms. Morgan, I don't want to return to the bank. I just want to tell you I'm sorry. Since that day, I've avoided every mirror. I see the worst version of myself, and it started long before you walked into that lobby. Your silence hit harder than any punishment. I mocked someone who did nothing to me. I laughed when I should have listened. I didn't know who you were, but that's the problem. I never cared to ask." The third letter was from Marcus, Chairwoman Morgan. "I touched your arm thinking I was doing my job, but I crossed a line. I never asked who you were. I assumed, and that assumption is what I'll regret for the rest of my life. I don't want anything from you, just a chance to say I was wrong. I've applied to be a volunteer at a shelter this winter. It's the least I can do." Leah sat still, eyes glistening, the letters trembling in her hands. She had seen arrogance in the banking world before, but rarely had she seen remorse like this. Not performative, not scripted, honest, raw, painful. She thought about what her late mother used to say. Grace isn't earned, it's gifted, especially to those who know what it feels like to fall. That night, she didn't sleep much. The next morning, she called her assistant. "Find me their addresses," she said softly. "I want to see them." 2 days later, she stood at a small cafe on the south side. Waiting, Julia was the first to arrive. She looked thinner, worn, but when she saw Leah, she froze. I didn't think you'd come," Julia whispered. Leah offered a seat. "I read your letter, all of them." Julia nodded, too ashamed to speak. "I didn't come to rehire you," Leah said calmly. "I came to say thank you." Julia looked up in shock. "Thank me? for owning your mistake, that takes strength. A few minutes later, Kelsey and Marcus joined them. The reunion was awkward, quiet at first. But slowly the walls crumbled. They didn't beg for jobs, they didn't ask for favors. They listened, they cried, they shared. And Leah saw something she hadn't seen in that bank lobby: humanity. When the meeting ended, Leah stood and looked each of them in the eye. "You won't be returning to your old roles," she said, "but I believe in second chances. If you're willing, there are new openings in our community banking initiative. Less glamour, more grit, you'll earn your way back this time. Not with pride, but with heart." They nodded, overwhelmed, as she stepped out into the cool autumn air. Leah felt something lift inside her, not guilt, not pity. Peace. 6 months later, Leah's office was quieter than usual. Morning sun filtered through the tall windows, catching the edge of a family photo on her desk. A picture of her late mother, and a younger version of herself with a stubborn smile. She often glanced at it when the world felt too heavy. But today, her thoughts were on someone else: Sandra Williams. Former teller, once a mocker, now one of the most consistent, hard-working members of Beacon's community banking team. She arrived early, stayed late, and treated every client, rich or poor, like royalty. What Leah didn't expect was that Sandra's name kept popping up in another context. Her son, Michael Morgan. He had returned from Boston 6 months ago to help restructure their digital banking division. Quiet, brilliant, observant, just like his father had been, and for reasons Leah couldn't explain at first. She often caught his gaze lingering a little too long on Sandra during meetings. At first, she said nothing, but the day she caught them laughing together in the break room, sharing lunch, something inside her softened. One evening, she called Sandra into her office. "My dear," Leah said gently, "I've been watching you." Sandra froze. "Ma'am, I swear I've done nothing wrong." Leah raised a hand with a smile. "I didn't call you in to scold you. Quite the opposite." Sandra exhaled, relieved. "Oh, you've become one of our most valued staff, but I also noticed you and Michael." Sandra's eyes widened. "Ma'am, I swear we never planned anything. I respect you, I know you do," Leah said, "and that's why I trust you." Sandra blinked. "You? Trust me?" Leah nodded. "Love doesn't ask for permission, but it does require responsibility. If my son has chosen you and you've chosen him, then I won't stand in the way. Just promise me one thing." Sandra swallowed. "Anything. Love him like he's human, not like he's wealthy. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters most." Tears filled Sandra's eyes as she nodded slowly. "I will, I promise." From that day, their bond deepened. By winter, Michael and Sandra were engaged. The story stunned the banking world. Whispers traveled fast. The same girl who mocked Leah Morgan is marrying her son. But Leah ignored the gossip. Her eyes were on the bigger picture at their wedding, when Sandra walked down the aisle in an ivory gown. Leah held her hand with quiet pride. The same hand that had once pushed her out of a bank now held her future. As the vows were exchanged and the priest pronounced them husband and wife, Leah whispered to herself, This is what legacy looks like. Not titles, not money, but forgiveness and love." The first snowfall of the year dusted the city in soft white. From the nursery window of Leah Morgan's home, little Olivia Grace, her new granddaughter, stared wide-eyed at the flakes swirling outside. Leah stood beside her, holding a warm mug of cocoa, watching not just the snow, but time itself. 3 years ago, she was mocked and pushed out of her own bank. Today, her former adversary was now her daughter-in-law, a woman reborn through humility, love, and perseverance. Sandra had given birth just weeks earlier. The house, once filled with silence and memory, now echoed with the cries of new life and laughter. Michael often joked that Olivia had Sandra's fire and Leah's stare. She would giggle whenever Leah sang her the old lullaby her own mother once sang. But even in joy, Leah never forgot. She often walked the garden alone in the evenings. Remembering the humiliation, the crowd, the icy silence of people who had judged without knowing. Not because she was bitter, but because she knew the world needed reminders. What happened in that bank wasn't just about clothes or titles. It was about how quickly people forget dignity when they think someone can't offer them anything in return. She thought of Julia, now working with a nonprofit credit union that served single mothers. Kelsey had gone back to school to study counseling, helping others deal with workplace trauma. Marcus, now a branch manager in a different state, hosted monthly compassion audits, a policy he created in honor of his mistake. All of them had become better, not despite what happened, but because of it. Leah took a deep breath and smiled as Olivia cooed beside her. Maybe that was the greatest wealth after all. Not money, but growth. Not applause, but awareness. She walked over to the crib, leaned down, and whispered softly, "You, my dear, will grow up in a house where kindness is louder than pride." Because in the end, the real empire Leah built wasn't just Beacon Financial. It was legacy, carved in forgiveness. A future born from grace. And to anyone watching this right now, maybe you've been judged. Or maybe you've been the one who judged too quickly. But here's what this story reminds us all. No one's worth is tied to what they wear or where they came from. And sometimes the richest souls walk in with the poorest shoes. So next time someone walks into your life, whether with broken heels or broken dreams, ask yourself, will I be part of their downfall or their transformation? You never know who you're standing next to. You might just be looking at the very person who holds your second chance. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Click the like button. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that grace still exists in this world. Tell us in the comments, have you ever misjudged someone or been misjudged? Your story might help someone else heal. And don't forget to subscribe for more true life stories that touch the heart, challenge the mind, and honor the human spirit. Until next time, remember, it costs nothing to be kind, but it can change everything.